Thanks so much for joining us today. I am Jody with Wellspring Solutions. And Wellspring Solutions is a nonprofit agency that offers home and community-based services to family caregivers and their loved ones, mainly with dementia, with specialized adult day services, group respite, education, and support. And we offer education sessions on a regular basis, offering different topics and partnering with different experts in their field. And we are very fortunate today to have David McLean with us to share his expertise on understanding Medicaid. And we're going to be going over the basics of this very complicated program. So thank you so much for being here. Mr. McLean is a Greensboro attorney who focuses primarily on elder law. That's guardianship, special needs trust, planning and applying for Medicaid benefits. And he also handles estate administration, probate matters, as well as estate planning. He earned a BA from Furman University, a Master of Divinity from the Southern Baptist Theological Seminary, and his law degree from Wake Forest. And I'm just so glad that we can partner again. And that you are just being so gracious with your time with us this morning. Thank you for being here. So in my experience, many caregivers, seniors, just don't have a clear distinction of what the Medicaid program even is and its difference from the Medicare program. Can you maybe explain that for a little bit? And then, like I said, I'm going to keep my eyes out for the chat to see if our caregivers here have questions. And I also have some questions keyed up from previous caregivers. So if you'll address that a little bit, I will come back and ask you maybe some more things, but I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Jody. And again, thank you for inviting me to be here today. Being a lawyer, I'm going to start out with a disclaimer instead of answering your question. And the disclaimer is basically that please understand this is for informational purposes. This is the things I say today are general. They describe how the law basically, or laws or regulations or practices basically work for especially the Medicaid program. But how to obtain Medicaid in a certain person's situation is going to be very different from anybody else's situation. And so please understand this is not legal advice. We're just giving some general outlines. And for more advice, see somebody who practices in this area. So I like to say that on my letterhead, I ought to change it to say David McLean, attorney, counselor, listener, explainer, and myth buster at law. Because I listen till my ears fall off, I explain till I'm hoarse, but I also bust myths and clear away the cobwebs. And one of the cobwebs is, well, what's the difference between Medicare and Medicaid? In a nutshell, Medicare is the program that anybody is going to qualify for once they turn 65, but also earlier than that, if they are rated disabled by the Social Security Administration using their criteria for being disabled. So that's a program that will pay, depending on the letter of the program, A, B, D, whatever, the program that will pay for some doctors, hospitals, some prescriptions, some co-pays, deductibles, maybe, things like that. Those kind of come into play with Medicare, but that is the program that anybody qualifies for. The program that I'm going to be talking about mostly specifically today is the Medicaid program for long-term care. By long-term care, I mean care in an assisted living facility, or in a memory care unit, or in a nursing home, or in the home care components that might match up with those, because there are some limited programs for home care that have the same rules and the same basic functions as care in a facility. And so again, that's the main difference. Medicare does not pay for very much of a nursing home stay. When a person admits to a nursing home, let's say, from a 3-day hospital admission, 3 days or more, then Medicare will pay day 1 through day 20. After day 21, or starting with day 21, Medicare will pay, I believe it's around 60/40 of that person's stay up until either day 100 or sooner than that if the person no longer is benefiting, is actually declining while on rehab services or just can't do rehab services. It might cut off sooner than day 100, but certainly it will cut off at day 100 at the most. And then you're looking at either private pay or Medicaid, and or a combination of things, including perhaps long-term care insurance if you're lucky enough to have something like that. I'm going to offer some practice tips, as I like to call them, throughout this seminar. And one practice tip I'll give you right now is when a nursing home is getting close to the point, they know it's coming, where Medicare is going to be cutting off, then they will often start getting very anxious. They're almost the canary in the coal mine to say something's got to happen right now. And unfortunately, a lot of times what they'll say is, okay, she's coming off, mom is coming off rehab, she's got to leave. Well, they don't really mean she has to leave. It means that something has to be arranged, either leaving or private pay or Medicaid. And so oftentimes I tell my clients, look, this is coming. You're going to have the talk with the nursing home. Don't freak out. Don't get scared that they're just going to put your mom on the curb on so-and-so day. Instead, what they're trying to do is light a fire under you to get you to do something about cost of care, because that's the big deal here, is cost of care. And I don't know, Jody, if you need more information about the distinctions there, but I will also say that in addition to paying for things like room and board, medications, nursing treatments, things like that in a nursing home or in an assisted living, Medicaid is also filling in some of the gaps that are left where there's a copay or where there's a deductible. Sometimes Medicaid is covering some of those things.
Yeah, so maybe let's segue into what Medicaid covers, I guess, as you just alluded to, and then we can talk about the nitty-gritties of the eligibility, which can get kind of complicated.
So with Medicaid, and I guess this is a good place to start, because the question often comes up at some point, why Medicaid? Well, here's why Medicaid. Once a person is on Medicaid, their income, their net income must be paid to the nursing home. But then the rest of the cost of care for that month is going to be paid by the Medicaid program. So the patient pays their monthly income, or their family or their guardian or their power of attorney agent pays their income to the nursing home, and then the net income, and then the nursing home bills Medicaid. All the patient pays is their net income amount that's coming in anyway. So that can be a huge savings when you compare that to the cost of care of the average assisted living facility in Guilford County, where you're looking at $3,500 to $5,000 a month, maybe. Memory care, $4,500 to as high I've heard as $7,000 or above a month. And some assisted facilities are going to be higher than that. Medicaid, private pay cost $8,000 to $10,000 a month. Instead, you're paying your net income, and so that can be a big help. So again, as I said a minute ago, Medicaid is also going to be covering some other types of costs or fees or services that maybe aren't getting covered by insurance, by Medicare. Medicare doesn't stop once you hit day 20 or day 21, day 100, whatever. But Medicare for the part of nursing home that involves room and board and nursing services and medications, except unless you have Part D, that is going to cut off. And so the room and board part, the $8,000 to $10,000 a month part, that's what Medicare is not going to cover anymore after that short period of time. That's when Medicaid comes in. I don't want to get too far into the weeds, but when I say net income, there are deductions where a person doesn't have to pay necessarily their full income to the nursing home. And one of those deductions is Medicaid makes an allowance for supplemental health insurance plans, because Medicaid wants to encourage a person on Medicaid to continue, let's say, a United Healthcare or Blue Cross Medicare supplement. So they'll allow you to pay less, dollar for dollar, based on the cost of your insurance you have. This is Medicaid for skilled care. Medicaid for assisted living doesn't do that. Why? I don't know. There's a lot about Medicaid for assisted living that doesn't seem to make sense compared to Medicaid for skilled care. But Medicaid for skilled care does make an allowance, so a person can keep their health insurance benefits. And that's a big deal. Before a patient drops their supplemental insurance policy, I'm always encouraging them to look carefully at what it's covering versus what Medicaid might cover, because that would be the fallback. You cut off United Healthcare and you still have Medicaid as a fallback, sure, but it may not cover everything. Some things may go uncovered. The facility may be holding out its hand for payment to the family because suddenly the certain services or certain materials that the health insurance covered, they don't get that coverage because they dropped the health insurance. So that's something to keep in mind. And that's one of those hidden benefits of the Medicaid program, is it makes an allowance so you can keep your health insurance, your supplemental insurance, when you're in the nursing home.
Thank you. That is that's a great tip. And so when you talk about qualifying, there's obviously, it's a program for it's income. If there's a financial eligibility component, there's a medical need or non-financial component. Everything has to be in place. Can you talk a little bit about that? And also, our viewers, they might be married, they might be single, they might have, I know you can really get thick into the weeds with that, but if you could just address both of that in an overall sense, that would be great.
Sure. And there's so many weeds that I'm going to use two metaphors. It's not only getting in the weeds, it's also the tip of the iceberg. And when I say the tip of the iceberg, everything I'm going to say here, just know that for everything I say, there's this much way down here underneath it, but these are the basics. So Jody's right. There are financial and non-financial components to Medicaid eligibility. So I break it down, most people break it down into three criteria for eligibility: medical need, income, assets. Medical need is what I call the gatekeeper criterion, because it determines everything else. The basic idea and it all comes down to a basic form, which is called the FL2 form. It's a Medicaid form. A lot of nursing homes, I think, still use it anyway, even if a given patient isn't coming on Medicaid, but still. Usually it's the nursing home filling it out, or it might be the discharging hospital, for example, filling it out. It might be the family doctor filling it out. On the form is a recommendation of level of care. It's a check the box for assisted living, memory care, skilled care, home care. Documentation that the nursing home submits behind that FL2 also has to support skilled care, and the person actually has to be in skilled care. If a person is in assisted living trying to get Medicaid but if a person's in assisted living, but the FL2 says skilled care, it's not going to fly. Everything has to line up. But once it does line up, that's the first prong. That's the FL2, that's medical need. And so if a person can be cared for in a nursing home, they're looking at skilled care Medicaid. If they're looking at care in an assisted living facility or memory care facility, then you're looking at that kind of Medicaid. Before I go further, let me just break that down a little bit, because that gets into the next prong, which is income. That second prong, medical need, income. When we talk about assisted living facilities, and I'm almost a layperson when it comes to how these are defined in the regulations, but basically it's like this. If a person needs help with a couple of the so-called activities of daily living, eating, bathing, dressing, toilet functions, and what they call transfers, getting up, sitting down, lying down. If a person needs help with a couple of those, you're looking at maybe assisted living level of care. or a few of those. If a person might be somewhat healthy or healthy enough to be able to walk on their own or use a walker on their own and get around well, or in a wheelchair, but they have some dementia issues that make it risky to themselves to be that mobile, then they might instead need what's called a memory care unit, which is a locked unit. It's a unit where to come out of it, you have to input the proper code into a keypad, for example. And then the most commonly known type of care is skilled nursing care, where a person might need help with several of the activities of daily living, or they might be a two-person assist on those issues. Okay, so anyway, those are the basic levels of care. So the FL2 is going to indicate what it indicates, and then we look at income. Some people, here's a myth buster thing. Some people think that, oh, I make $2,000 a month in income from Social Security, I can't get Medicaid in the nursing home. Well, that's not true. That is just simply not the case. Medicaid for assisted living, which actually has its own name, it's called special assistance. Special assistance has a very strict income cap. It does. It's around $1,260 or so a month in income. If a person makes anything above that, they will flat out not qualify for Medicaid for assisted living. The income cap for Medicaid for memory care is roughly $1,580 a month, $1,580 a month. Anything above that, they won't qualify. And those particular limits have not gone up in, I believe, over 15 years. Whereas the income limit for Medicaid for skilled care, it fluctuates from place to place. Every facility has its own calculation, basically. But put it this way, as long as a person's income is below the private pay rate for a facility, chances are pretty good they're going to qualify for Medicaid as far as income is concerned, meaning their income would not be too high. And you're looking at anywhere $65,000, $7,000 or higher per month in income that a person can have and still get Medicaid for skilled care. By the way, there are also some programs out there for home care where a person would be at the assisted living level on the FL2, but they get lucky enough to qualify for home care. Well, same income and asset rules apply. Same for skilled care, in-home care under Medicaid. Same rules apply. And those in-home programs are called the CAP program, CAP, Community Alternatives Program. Anyway, so that's income. Strict limit for assisted living, strict limit for memory care, strangely high, almost strangely high and fluctuating flexible limit for Medicaid for skilled care. You can make a lot of money each month and still qualify. Last criterion is assets. Medicaid for skilled care says a person can have only $2,000 in what's called countable assets. Medicaid divides assets into two types right here. And they say countable assets are what I call available. They're liquid. They can be used quickly, or even maybe not quickly, but they can be used and should be used to pay for care or dealt with in some other way before benefits come in. $2,000. And by countable assets, I'm talking about checking, savings, CDs, stocks and bonds, mutual funds, cash value of life insurance, things like that. Exempt assets, meaning assets that Medicaid doesn't count in looking at eligibility, are things like one car and the primary residence. That's a big deal. A person can get on Medicaid for skilled care being in a nursing home and still own their house, their primary residence house. That doesn't mean we stop there as elder law attorneys, but in a pinch, a person, could qualify for Medicaid and own their house. When you're talking about a married couple where one spouse is trying to get on Medicaid in the nursing home or at home, the other spouse, the spouse not getting on Medicaid, which is called the community spouse, The community spouse has allowances. For one thing, they get to keep a certain portion in some circumstances. They get to keep a certain portion each month of the Medicaid spouse's income, meaning the Medicaid spouse might pay less than their net income going to the nursing home because the spouse at home might keep some of it. There's also a spousal resource allowance where the limit for a married couple is not $2,000 total. It's higher than that, depending on several factors. I'm not going to get into those now because, again, those vary from person to person, but at least know that there are some allowances that get made there. I also won't get too far into the weeds about special assistance, the Medicaid for assisted living or memory care programs, but just know this: the rules for spouses are very different. Those programs basically ignore the income and the assets titled in the name of the community spouse when you're trying to get on Medicaid for assisted living or memory care. But that doesn't mean we stop there, because people don't generally stay at one level the rest of their life. They are going to decline over time, and so we still plan as if Medicaid for skilled care is going to come into play. Medicaid for skilled care looks at the assets of the couple, no matter whose name is on it. And that's a very, believe that there was a lot of detail right there, but believe me, that's very broad strokes for what it means to have financial and non-financial requirements, and also to go a little bit further about the income and assets. And I saw we had a couple of questions pop up as we went. So Jody, I'll leave that to you if you want to ask those now or near the end or whatever.
Yeah, the question basically was about looking at joint income, so income of the partner. And you kind of, address the community spouse, and if anyone needs clarification on that, please just go ahead through the chat, but that's, you addressed it, I believe. Well,
let me just add one more thing, and that is the only time Medicaid looks at the income of the community spouse, the non-Medicaid spouse, is to determine if they get some allowance coming to them from the income of the Medicaid spouse. Pay attention to what I didn't say there. What I didn't say is that in determining whether a person is eligible for Medicaid, the income comes into play. The community spouse can make tons of money a month, and as long as all the other qualifications are there, then they can get Medicaid. The Medicaid spouse can get Medicaid. The community spouse's income doesn't keep somebody from getting Medicaid. It simply might mean that they pay less to the nursing home because the community spouse gets to keep more for the household. There you go.
I might have an interesting question of my own. I'm not sure. I just kind of thought of this. So this might not be something we can address right now. Let's say, I think many would agree that people want to stay at home. That's what their primary wish is when they have a chronic illness, or they may need placement, but staying at home is the preference. If the FL2 indicates that they need, or the medical need is skilled care, but someone prefers home care, does that FL2 really dictate the path someone needs to take? Does that make sense?
Yeah, and that's a really good question. Basically, the FL2 is indicating the type of care. It's not necessarily indicating where that care gets given. And so, so there again, there's a program called the CAP program.
Right.
Well, there's CAP for all kinds of different people, all kinds of different impairments, disabilities, starting with birth all the way up. And there's a whole alphabet soup of different CAP programs. But the ones I'm talking about are the programs where a person would be either at assisted living or memory care level. And maybe not, memory care may be touchy because it's hard to keep somebody in a locked space in the house, but it's certainly assisted living versus skilled care. So the eligibility rules are the same, but again, it's the type of care, not so much where they are. But keep in mind a couple of things about CAP. The Community Alternatives Program for Assisted and Skilled, the application starts at the health department, the county health department, not at county social services. It's a different department. The person applying for CAP has to be at that care need level to be even on the waiting list. Like you or I could not get on the waiting list. Somebody has to be at the level where they need assisted living or skilled to even get on the list. And then once they're on the list, the last I checked, which admittedly is about 3 years ago, the last I had to check, the waiting list for nursing home level cap in Guilford County was 11 months. And then there is also a possibility, depending on lots of things, that maybe over time, a person who's in a nursing home can come out to the home with Medicaid following them. But there are pros and cons to having Medicaid cover your home care. And those need to be talked about and considered in depth very carefully.
Okay.
But just know those are out there. Those possibilities exist.
So I guess, folks are watching this because they have questions about the Medicaid program, and I'm wondering what you suggest for just how to begin. Where would someone go about, okay, I feel like I need to do an application. Do I need to consult with someone who specializes in elder law?
If somebody is considering applying for Medicaid for somebody, and the patient, let's say, doesn't have much, they rent, they don't have a lot of money, they don't have any vehicles, they don't have any close family or not many close family, they're not married, that might be a person who could benefit from just going and applying or having somebody go and apply. The more complicated a person's situation is, the more assets, the more higher their income, the different sources of income. Maybe they have a retirement plan, maybe they have a long-term care insurance. They have a couple of vehicles, they have a house or two, or they own their house. The more complicated things get, the more it's important to look at some planning. There is something very important in the Medicaid world called the look back period, because Medicaid does not like to see people making gifts or doing things that Medicaid calls gifts in order to apply. And Medicaid does not want to hear a reason why something was done. Medicaid simply says, we're going to look back 5 years to the day from when a person applies for Medicaid. So somebody applying today, the caseworker is looking back to September 29th, 2016 to see what has been done. And if any transaction looks like a gift, then they're going to add up all those transactions like that, or all those gifts like that, and then divide it by $6,810. That's an exact figure that Medicaid says that's the average cost of care in a nursing home per month, statewide, $6,810. So let's do an easy math. If somebody has given away assets in a total amount of $68,100, well, divide $68,100 by $68,810, and you get 10. 10 is the number of months that you have to wait once all the other ducks are in a row and you're ready to qualify and you're down to $2,000 or down to your spousal limit, but now you have to wait 10 months. That's why it's important to at least know what you're doing or talk to a Medicaid, an elder law practitioner ahead of time. The sooner you start looking, the more options you have. And I'll address a question that popped up that I happened to see while I was talking there. I think the question was something along the lines of, do you apply for Medicaid now before you need nursing home care?
Correct.
Well, the answer to that is it depends. If you think you might try for in-home care through the CAP program, then if the patient does need a lot of care already, then it might be worth your while to start the application with the health department now. But if a person is in, declining health, but not to the point of skilled care yet, then if you're looking to apply for Medicaid for facility skilled care, then perhaps you don't apply yet. I would say you're thinking ahead if you want to apply for CAP for in-home care, because yeah, there's a waiting list, but it doesn't do anybody any good to apply for Medicaid for skilled care if the day they're going to enter skilled care is more than about 2 weeks from now, just because of the paperwork. The Medicaid application processing time is supposed to be 45 days. In Guilford County, they are sticking to that right through. Almost always, it's 45 days. So if you apply for Medicaid before you're in the nursing home and then something happens and you don't get there in time, then Medicaid is going to get denied. And you'd have to reapply anyway. And with COVID and protocols and some people coming in under quarantine, especially if they're not vaccinated, then there are lots of variables and you have to be in pretty close contact with the nursing home to figure out it. And they will help you. If you're looking to go into a nursing home, they're very good at looking at the timing and figuring out when it's best to come in and when it's best to apply. But I will caution you that the average nursing home, nothing against them at all, but they've got a whole lot of things to worry about and be educated on. A lot of times a nursing home that actually files an application for you might miss some things that would have helped you if you had, let's say, an elder law practitioner applying for you, because there are lots of nuances here that I'm not even addressing at all. Again, tip of the iceberg. And so, but yeah, in terms of timing, it's very important to work with the nursing home administration about when to file that application.
Are there any other questions? This has been such valuable information. I hope that everyone will continue to ask some questions along the way as you think about the need for applying. But are there any questions at the moment? Any other last minute tips that you might, let's see here. If you were looking at VA facilities, are there any specifics that you are aware of?
Okay, so the VA has changed some of its rules about facilities themselves to where there are not as many facilities where the VA actually licenses the facility, as it were. There are still some facilities that are fully staffed and run by the VA. I believe there's one in the Triad area, Kernersville or Winston. I know there's one in Durham. I know there's a big one in Salisbury. They have all levels of care there. And a lot of times, depending on the level of the impairment, depending on their space, but also depending on how much the disability or the impairment that a person has is directly related to service. If a person is lucky enough to actually, for example, get into the VA facility in Salisbury, there's a lot that the VA will provide, and to the point where Medicaid may not even be necessary. Other than that, the VA will coordinate with some facilities, and I'll admit I don't know a lot of detail about that. I will say though that if a person is already receiving VA benefits for what's called pension with aid and attendance, where you serve during a certain period of time and you have you meet certain income and asset requirements, then you can get some help with your medical expenses each month. Those, I'll say it this way. It's very important to coordinate a Medicaid application with pension with aid and attendance benefits that a person may already get, because Medicaid coming in and starting to pay for cost of care in a nursing home often means that pension with aid and attendance is going to diminish or go away. That's okay because you still have that other pay source of Medicaid, but the VA sometimes just pulls a rug out from under people, and then they're left wondering if they have to pay them back or where the coverage is going to come from. It's better to try to coordinate. If you've already got pension with aid and attendance, let the representative you work with at the VA know that you're going to apply for Medicaid for skilled care, because those are going to come into play. Compensation for war-related or combat service-related disabilities, that shouldn't go away just because Medicaid comes in. But there are, yeah, throwing VA into the mix just ratchets the complexity. But there are, there are a lot of ways the programs work well together.
Thank you for that, David.
Mm-hmm.
Are there any additional questions? Again, if they come to you at a later time, you can always contact me, and at the end of this, we will, when it's published, we will share David's contact information.
Jody, if
yeah.
I can jump in, there is one issue that you and I had talked about that I want to throw in there.
Please do.
And that is when a person is living in the home and they are receiving some sort of CAP benefit. And this is true whether the person receiving CAP is at the assisted living or skilled care level because of impairments like that, ADLs, or whether they are in some kind of, the FL2 might indicate intermediate care because they have some developmental disabilities, say from childhood. Oftentimes, not directly, but let's say a caregiving parent or a caregiving child can get paid through the Medicaid program, usually this way. Usually it's where in-home care company, and then the parent, the caregiving parent or the caregiving child gets employed by that company, and the company pays that caregiving parent or child with money that's coming in from Medicaid for the person on Medicaid. It's convoluted, but that is how it can be done. So I get the question a lot. You've gotten the question, can a caregiving parent or child be paid by Medicaid? And the answer is, not directly from Medicaid to you, but yeah, they can get paid. And so that's a benefit to that CAP program. I will also, though, throw in another thing about CAP, and this one is only about CAP as far as I know, CAP for assisted or Medicaid. There's a monthly dollar limit, meaning that once a person pays their income and then Medicaid covers a certain amount for in-home care for that month, then the in-home care payment stops. And if more in-home care is needed, where's it going to come from? Well, the family passes the hat or whatever, and the old country music song comes into play right here, too much month at the end of the money. Whereas that's not a problem with Medicaid for skilled care or assisted living, at least not right now. Once you're in a facility, you pay your monthly income. That's all you pay. Whatever your cost of care is, Medicaid will cover the rest.
Gotcha. Okay, let's see. Yeah, someone just seeking some more information about the CAP program once we finish, and we can send you some resources. Yes, I know it can be complex, and we'll get you some resource materials. No problem. Any other thoughts to share?
Plan ahead. I can't stress enough. Plan ahead.
Yeah.
If you are, a couple of points. One is if you are possibly insurable with long-term care insurance, those can work great. There are some policies out there. They may cost a little more, but there are some policies out there that are, I guess you might call them hybrid policies, where they have a long-term care insurance component, and then whatever's left over, if anything, turns into life insurance. And at least something is coming out to the family, just like a regular life insurance policy. Pre-need funeral contracts are a wonderful thing. Pre-need cremation contracts are a wonderful thing. They work well when we're trying to figure out how to help somebody qualify for Medicaid. So they're great to do in general right now, and they can certainly be utilized by somebody like us. But remember, again, just in general, there are a lot of rules that I haven't even touched on that come into play 90% of the time. And so to have a real handle on those things, start early and work with somebody who knows what they're doing to try to sort through the options. A lot of times people have more options than they thought they did, unless it's the last minute.
Wonderful. I am just so appreciative of you sharing your time and your expertise with us again.
Thank you for asking. I appreciate it. Always a pleasure.
I know. I appreciate how you make this complex topic understandable, and you're getting lots of thanks. So we appreciate you. And just to share, if you would like education on other topics that are either elder law related, just practicing self-care strategies, information about dementia care topics, please visit our website. We now have about 50 or so videos archived in our video resource library. That is at www.well-springsolutions.org. And if you find that you are not even sure where to start about the resources you might need, if you're caregiving and you're new to the experience, or if you're finding that now you just need some help and you're ready for it, please think about calling our lead navigator. She is a social worker that can meet with you and do a free assessment to get a sense of your caregiving situation and make some recommendations, whether they're with Wellspring Solutions or community partners. So that phone number is 336-545-5377. And we just thank you so much for joining us. And I hope everybody has just a wonderful day.
Thank you, Joe.
Thank you again so much.